In heart, I'm a researcher. That's really what I do. I love researching. I love looking for solutions. And I like looking at areas of the world where we can look at things and why do they work so well over there and why aren't we implementing them here? And it's taken me down the journey of medicinal mushrooms, where I've spent some time in Japan and China and looking at why these cultures use mushrooms on such a consistent basis for thousands of years. We can look at the oldest medical books in the world, and they all revolve around medicinal mushrooms. So today, this morning, we're going to go down the rabbit hole a little bit. Let's get a little background on mushrooms. Humans and mushrooms and fungi share 50 to 70% of the same DNA. Depending on which mushroom we're looking at or which fungi we're looking at, that in itself is amazing. Considering us and plants is roughly about 10%, us and fungi are that 50% mark. Significant when we look at that. Us and monkeys is in the 90 percentile. So DNA is something that even handfuls of years ago we really didn't quite understand. But as we move forward in science, we really can tap into DNA and really kind of take a look at how everything ties together. But even look at those two little guys in the corner. Those are fungi. And those are two little mushrooms. And if you looked at them, they almost look like two people walking. And that's what's so unique about them is fungi are also very much like humans in the aspect that they breathe like us. They pull in oxygen and push out carbon. They consume like us. Mushrooms need to be on a log, or they need to be on the ground, or they need to be on a bug, or they need to be on something to feed off of. Fungi do not require the sun to produce energy and to survive at all. So that's what's so unique about them and how old they are. Fungi are about 1.3 billion years old. We're not. We're maybe 100,000 at best along that time frame. So when we look at that just in numbers, look at the experience that fungi have. Fungi have their own little defense system. They are antiviral, antifungal, antibacterial, even antifungal. A lot of people go, how is a fungus an antifungus? Well, they're competitive. So when they're on their little log, they don't want any other fungi encroaching on their territory. So they, over this period of 1.3 billion years, have developed all of these components to survive. And that's the biggest thing about fungi is they're survivors. They've survived every extinction level event that we've had. We've had about, 5 extinction level events? The last one 65 million years ago with the dinosaurs, where an asteroid, a meteorite, the finger of God, depending on your belief system, touched the earth, created this dust cloud. This dust cloud blocked out the sun for years. Now, at that point, everything died. Plant life died, animal life died. As a matter of fact, we're burning in our vehicles the dinosaur bones, right? And we're in Alberta at this point right now. This is huge oil country. And this is all a result of this last extinction. Boom, dinosaurs gone. So all animal life died, all plant life died, but at that time, one thing thrived. One loves a cool, dark place. Fungi. Fungi took over the world. At that point in time, there were fungi or mushrooms as big as trees today. They broke down, they're Mother Nature's recyclers. They broke down that environment and created that ecosystem for life to regenerate, for plant life to come back. We can look at the soils and the fungi that are required in those soils are phenomenal. And again, every extinction level event, what has saved us every time is fungi. Spores are everywhere. Fungal spores, every breath you take, believe it or not, you're pulling in spores. Spores travel intergalactically. They have the ability to leave our atmosphere. It's amazing or come in from other places if you want to look at it from that perspective. Fungi are truly remarkable. And it's taken me in a world of study that I never thought I'd be in, but I'm so glad I went down and looked at it. But again, they have such abilities. And when we look at prescription medications, we can look at drugs and go, well, where do they come from? It's not some guy in a magic coat that's putting it together in a lab. Medications come from a source, either animal, plant, fungal, different sources, mineral source. So fungi, out of the top 20 selling medications, the bulk of that is a fungal source. We can look at penicillin. We can look at, different forms of antibiotics. Cholesterol drugs. Lovastatin simply comes out of the oyster mushroom. You can go to your local grocery store, get the oyster mushroom. It's absolutely delicious. You can make it look like little French fries and fry it up. And it's lovastatin if you want to manage cholesterol. So what happens in the world of pharma is we can isolate lovastatin, for example, out of a mushroom. We can patent that process and put it in a pill form and patent that medication. And that's how drug companies and pharmaceuticals kind of work. And that's fine. That's how you isolate a compound. A natural source is that oyster mushroom for lovastatin. You can eat that, and you're not going to have the same side effects as you would with medications because of all the other cofactors. As opposed to just pulling something out, it's missing all the other things that make it all dance nice together. So even antibiotics, all of these things are a result of fungi. It's remarkable, right? Immune modulators, and we look at anti-rejection drugs. Someone's going to get a new kidney, for example, a transplant. You're going to get an anti-rejection drug, so your immune system doesn't start attacking that. And what that's based, again, is fungal. Because mushrooms are classified as an immune modulator. And this is where we'll dive into how they work. As an immune modulator, it brings your immune system up, and it brings your immune system down. It's about finding that balance. We can take many things to boost our immune system. Vitamin C, things like that can boost your immune system. But mushrooms are dual directional. Up, down. Cases of autoimmune disease, where we're dealing with rheumatoid arthritis, even allergies, where our immune system becomes overactive, right? Fungal ability, the medicinal properties in fungus have that ability to direct our immune system back down. And so one thing we have to understand when we deal with mushrooms is mushrooms aren't the magical that are going to fix all the problems. Mushrooms are giving your body the ability to start recognizing and fighting for itself. Our immune system, comparing our age, fungi is 1 billion years old. We are not. Our immune system is like a 2-year-old. Really is what it boils down to. Our immune system is like a 2-year-old. And it's strong, but it's just not very wise. It doesn't always recognize things. Doesn't know if things are good, things are bad. Sometimes it starts to attack healthy cells and you have an autoimmune disease. Cancer, if you do any research on medicinal mushrooms, one of the things you will always see is cancer. Because of the role of the mushroom and the medicinal components, it's giving that immune system recognition. If you get anything out of today, this is what I need you to understand, is that mushrooms are an immune modulator. They can bring the immune system up or bring the immune system down, and recognition. Cancer, for that perfect example, is you have a mutated cell that's not dying itself, and the immune system simply doesn't recognize this cell as being something it should attack. If we look at, and we'll get in through some of the mushrooms here, there's a few key mushrooms that are even medications are pulled of. Cancer medications are used because what it does is it's giving that immune system that recognition of the cells that this is a bad cell. Start fighting. Our immune system is powerful. You wouldn't get through the end of this building if your immune system wasn't constantly fighting for you and battling. And it just needs direction. So when we look at fungi, it's like bringing in a wise old medical professor who has 1.3 billion years of experience and sharing that wisdom and knowledge with our own immune system. That's the key with medicinal mushrooms. Here's one of the most common right now, is chaga. Chaga is known as the king of medicinal mushrooms, or the king of all herbs. And the reason why chaga is so unique is it's so nutrient dense. It's literally one of the most potent nutrient dense substances on earth. When we look at the most nutritious plant on earth is Moringa oleifera. Moringa is about 100 nutrients. And it's a bean or a fruit, you can call it, that grows 12 inches, 18 inches long. You can consume it. It has all the nutrients to sustain life. And that's at about 100. That's the most nutritious plant. Chaga is over 200. I've seen some reports that there's 240 different components in chaga. Just significant. So when we look at this, superoxide dismutase is one of the most potent antioxidants, is loaded with this. The nice thing about chaga is it's a Canadian mushroom or fungi. It grows on the birch trees far north. It also grows in Siberia and the Scandinavian countries, anywhere in the northern climates, and it loves birch. It'll grow on other trees as well, but it works in harmony with that tree. And it's so unique in its capabilities. So chaga, one of the big things, has been used for generations by the First Nations within Canada. Or even we can look traditionally, the medicine men in northern Russia and Siberia and all of that were all using chaga. Because chaga has that ability as being so potent for anything as anti-cancer right now, as chaga is being drawn into. Diabetes, chaga is being, again, showing results in managing that. All illness, all disease is going to have an impact when we can bring in 240 phytonutrients or micronutrients being from mushrooms. The big thing here is the DNA support and the DNA damage and repair that comes with chaga. It is so rich in betulinic acid and melanin. And melanin is huge for DNA repair. And again, back to that DNA concept, it's not something that has been well explored except for the last real 20 years. And we're hearing more and more and more about DNA damage and as a cause of a lot of disease. So when we look at mushrooms, it's not as a matter of waiting till we have something wrong and then we go, oh, geez, I better start taking chaga or medicinal mushrooms. Yeah, they will help the system when you are struggling and fighting disease. But it's just as important to make sure we don't have that disease process begin. Right? We always want to look at prevention as much as we want to look at something to deal with the condition. So chaga is, again, all of these can work well with conventional cancer treatments. And we'll get into one of the next mushrooms here that is being used in China and Japan. But think of this one as rich in a wide spectrum of nutrients, a powerful antioxidant, and DNA support. I mean, that is huge just for this mushroom alone. Now, each mushroom has an affinity or a strong point for something. So that's what this one is known as, its strong point. And pain, inflammation markers as well. It's huge when we deal with this. This is a very interesting mushroom, the Coriolis, or the turkey tail. This is the one in Japan and China where they pull out either PSP or PSK, polysaccharide peptide, or polysaccharide crestin. Those medications are used in hospital for cancer treatment, alongside with their traditional radiation and chemotherapy and surgery when necessary. But what this is doing, and what they found with these medications withdrawn from this mushroom, is it's giving our immune system that ability to recognize start of mutated cells, any cell changes. Automatically, it's putting your immune system on high alert to keep watch, keep look, and ensure that these things don't start up. Again, you can deal with and start taking this prior to being diagnosed with any major conditions. But out there, they use it also in part of their adjuvant part of treatment. Okay? And so that's why this one is so important, and you'll start to see more and more on Coriolis in the next little while. But it's significant in maintaining after cancer treatment, because how often, and we've all seen this, everyone has a family relative or themselves or something that's battled cancer. It's just so prevalent in our culture, even globally. Now, how often do we see when somebody gets their treatment, rings the bell, they've gone through treatment, they've now been kind of been diagnosed as cancer-free. Right now, it's latent or really you've gone through your treatments, off you go. What happens all too often 2 years later is a reoccurrence. Right? A reoccurrence comes back, and that second time, your chances of survival are significantly lower than your first time of battling. And the system just doesn't respond to the treatments the same way as it did the first time. That's why in those countries, China and Japan, in those Asian countries, this mushroom is maintained for the rest of your life. If you've gone through cancer treatment, this medication, PSP, PSK, you're on it for the rest of your life. And the reason is, again, keeping that immune system always aware and on the hunt for any of those mutated cells before it starts to proliferate and lead to a much more severe problem. And we can look statistically at those countries and see that their rates of reoccurrence are much lower than here in North America. And this is one of the big things that they're advocating for, is the significance of that. So this is a big one to always keep in mind when you're dealing with these types of conditions. The next one we'll look at is reishi. Ganoderma. This is probably one of the most popular ones. This is the one that when you say medicinal mushrooms, other than the magic mushrooms you took in the mid-'80s when you went to that rock concert, this is the one medicinal mushroom that typically comes to mind, is reishi. This is a mushroom that has been used, again, thousands and thousands and thousands of years through the Asian culture. This is known as the mushroom of immortality. This has the ability for the heart and stress and adaptogens. And we'll talk a little bit about that. I mean, how many people deal with stress on a daily basis? We live in a society where we're bombarded by stress. And stress has a huge factor on all aspects of health. It's not just mental health that impacts stress. When we start dealing with stress, we're also impacting cardiovascular function, blood pressures, hormones. All of these things change. Cortisol levels, all of these stress factors and hormones that we can look at. And that impacts all levels of health. We have to look at health, interestingly, like in your body is like let's put it in comparison with a country. Say the United States. Well, actually, let's use Alberta here, because the other day you guys had an earthquake by Red Deer, right? So that's very regional. So let's compare our body to a country, say Canada. Alberta had an earthquake. As rare as it is, it's a bit of an event, right? So it's not going to impact the guys in Ontario. It's not going to impact the guys in Vancouver. It's very regional. That's much like you spraining an ankle. It's not going to impact a lot throughout your whole body. It's very regional. When we deal with trouble in Ottawa, which there's a lot of trouble in Ottawa right now, that's the control center. That's your mind in comparison. That impacts the whole country. Doesn't matter if you live in Victoria or all out in St. John's. Anywhere in between, when we have a problem with the control center, with the mind, with Ottawa, it's impacting the whole country. So when the mind is under stress, when the body is under stress, it's impacting the whole system. It's not just impacting a little region. So reishi has that ability, as well as with adaptogens. When we talk about adaptogens, it's how our body responds to stress and how our body manages with stress. So one of the cool things about mushrooms is when we start to consume them, they have that ability to change just how you respond. And it's so unique. It's tough to describe, but when you start to consume them, and you find yourself in certain situations, you find you're a little bit calmer. You manage those situations. You can control and think through those situations. You're not quite as reactive. I know even with children, God knows they have a lot of disorders right now, ADD, ADHD, all of these different things, and stress plays a big factor with that. I know my family, we don't have any major incidences or concerns with that at all, but my children, I have them taking mushrooms. And since that time frame, I can tell that they're a little bit calmer in how they react to situations. They think things through just a little bit. And they're young. They're 11 and 13. And it's nice to see just that subtle impact, but it changes so many things in health. So really reishi is an adaptogen. It's great for the heart, cardiovascular function, adaptogen to help with stress, and really help with sleep. Shiitake. This is an edible one. The last couple, reishi is not an edible. It has to be prepared. Same thing with chaga. They're not edibles. Shiitake certainly is one of the edibles, and I'm sure many of you may have had it in some dish of some sort. This is a great one for colds, flus, really a strong antiviral component to this, but also as well huge for cancer. Think of this one for men's health. One of the key active components in here is lentinin, which is huge for prostate health, some of those main issues that men see. So again, this one, if you think of it as mushroom of life, right? And this is an edible one. If you have an opportunity to eat medicinal mushrooms or eat mushrooms in general, they are going to have that impact. The way to properly eat medicinal or mushrooms is not raw. And I always tell people we have to understand, back to how much DNA we share with fungi, the cell wall of fungi or a mushroom is made of chitin. That's the same substance that makes a lobster shell or a crab shell. This is how closely, again, we're related. So the cell wall of a mushroom and the shell of a lobster, any exoskeleton, is made from the same substance. So we don't even have the digestive enzymes to break down chitin. So that's why it's so important to prepare the mushroom, break that down, because you would never eat a lobster shell, right? You want to extract the meat. And that's the same thing with fungi and mushrooms. We want to extract and break it down. So the proper way that I tell everybody to do it is fry them in butter because of fat. What we have to understand is a couple things things can come out in water, known as water-soluble properties. So when we look at some of those other mushrooms like chaga, one of the most popular things people do is make a tea. So they'll take chaga chunks, put it in water, make a tea, and that's what's called a hot water extract. That's great, but you're going to only get whatever comes out in water. Right? So you're only going to get the water-soluble components. So what I tell people when they start using chaga, I say, take that chaga out from the water when you're done with it and put it in vodka. Put it in alcohol. Because at that point, now alcohol is going to break it down even more, and you're going to extract the fat-soluble properties. So take, for example, chaga is rich in vitamin D. But you can put, vitamin D is fat-soluble. So you could put that chaga in water all day long and simmer it all day long. You're never going to pull out those fat-soluble components. So you're missing 50% on average of the medicinal components, right? And so that's the same thing when we cook shiitake and eat shiitake or any of the edible mushrooms, cook them in butter. Why butter? Because it's a fat. It's going to help break down that chitin much easier, and it's going to also open up that ability to get the fat-soluble properties out of it. So again, always remember that mushrooms are rich in many different nutrients. So yes, B-complex vitamins, vitamin D, one of the few things other than an animal source that has vitamin D capabilities. So rich in amino acids, vitamins, minerals, really rich in minerals. So shiitake, again, huge for the liver, huge for men's health. Here's an interesting one. This is probably one of my personal favorites, is cordyceps. This is known as the caterpillar fungus. And the reason it's called that is because it grows on caterpillars. This has an insect source. Now, this one traditionally was used in the Himalayas by the monks. It grew up high in the elevations, and it allowed them, when they eat it, to go to higher elevations. This one has a strong affinity for the lungs, increasing oxygen capacity so they can get to those higher elevations and build their little temples. This one, again, huge for kidneys, adrenal support, lung support. This is the one that's been used for performance enhancing, stamina, libido. All of those things revolve around this fungi. The unique thing about it is that energy production. When we can increase oxygen, we can increase many different functions in the body. Now everyone goes, ooh, it grows on a caterpillar. This is the funky thing about this mushroom is it almost turns the zombie effect on. Okay? So when a little caterpillar or spider or insect is on the ground and picks up the spore, the fungus will all of a sudden take control of the brain. What it does is it gets that spider or caterpillar to climb high, high, high up in the tree, and then it takes it over, kills it. This is powerful. When a fungi has the ability to control the mind of an insect like that. But this is what it does, and at this point it can survive up there. It's all about survivability, right? So this is what this one does. You don't actually eat the caterpillar. The little stroma or the fungus that grows off of it, that little tip is really the medicinal part of it, right? Unique, amazing. The Chinese Olympic team has been using this forever for performance enhancing. In the world of Olympics, between first place and no place is fractions of seconds. So performance enhancing, that's stamina. It allows you to have that ability. The hen of the woods. This is a great one. Think of this one as women's health. Okay? Diffraction is one of the big things with this. Activating natural killer cells, breast cancer, ovarian, uterine. These things respond well to diffraction. And tons and tons and tons of research on that. And I encourage everyone, this is the tip of an iceberg. Everyone needs to kind of dive in and find the mushroom research that they're searching for. And we have the ability today to do a lot of that. So again, this is one that's great for spleen, the stomach, women's health, right? I know we're running short of time. Blood sugar as well. With a lot of medicinal mushrooms, blood sugar is nicely controlled. And you'll see a lot of research. Lion's mane, another one of a unique category. This is an edible as well. This one is great with fried in butter, but this is the one mushroom that has the ability to promote nerve growth factor. And we understand that the body's ability to heal nerves is typically not very good. And so when the nerves are damaged or you have even cognitive function with the brain, lion's mane is unique in that ability to open those capabilities up, getting the body to repair nerves, getting the mind, cognitive function, concentration, anything along that line. This is the one that you'll see more and more. This is Agaricus blazei. Agaricus blazei is a Brazilian mushroom that grew regionally, and the people in that area had significant advantages in health. They didn't have the same numbers, and this is an edible one, and they ate it. It was a huge part of the diet. And it really grabbed the attention of the Asian culture because the numbers of cancer situations where this was grown and eaten was really low. So the Asian culture has really taken this one on now as well for cancer. But this one is a very well-rounded, and it helps with the body with a detox effect, and it works in so many, a myriad of ways. So this is another one where it's activating your white blood cells, it's activating that immune system, and keeping that awareness, that immune system always, always, always searching. Disease prevention, and that's the thing we want to always deal with, is let's deal with prevention before we have to deal with restorative situations. So what we've done is we've taken all of those 8 mushrooms and combined them into what we call our MyShrooms Immunity. Now the process to do this is, again, we do what's known as a dual extraction process. So not only are we using the hot water to pull out the water-soluble properties, but we're also using the alcohol to pull out the fat-soluble properties. So that's the key factor, is having a dual extraction process. So that's what we've done, is we've taken all 8 of those mushrooms, and mushrooms dance nicely together, and that's so unique, right? They work well, they feed off each other, they all dance nicely. So that's what we've done, is we've taken all 8 mushrooms, we've had a concentration of as high as Health Canada would allow us to do, which is 40% polysaccharides, and that's kind of, think of when you're buying a bottle of booze, vodka, or whatever, the alcohol, right? 40%. With this, that's the active medicinal components, partly is the polysaccharides, beta-glucans, and you'll do more and more research on that. but I know we are almost out of time. The nice thing about this is I made it taste so good that my kids would take it. It tastes like chocolate. Some of you had the chance to taste it. If not, please come and see us, and we'll give you a taste of it. So we made this taste like chocolate, and it really plays well together, but a secret ingredient that we have in all of our things is fulvic acid. We're all about absorption. My research is all about absorption. What we take in, what we pull in, is two different numbers. Our gut is not typically very healthy in most people. So this is why we run into the issues of absorption, and people often take supplements and it ends up going right through them, and we have what's known as expensive urine. Everything we do is sublingual, buccal absorption. Within a very short time, it's absorbed here. It's at the level of the heart. The secret ingredient is fulvic acid at that point. So great, we can now get it into the circulatory system very quick, but where we want it to go is into the cells. And that's where fulvic acid comes in. It's a chelating kind of agent. It's a catalyst to help pull those medicinal compounds into the cell, and at the same time, it's going to also remove wastes. So fulvic acid is so essential, full of trace minerals. So now we have the ability with this to get it into the system, get it into the cells. And this is where we start seeing significant results. The other one we did very recently, we released at Christmas time, is chaga, the most medicinal mushroom. Chaga, as we talked off the top. But chaga naturally contains vitamin D and all the cofactors required for that vitamin D to be absorbed and utilized in the body, vitamin K and etc. So what we've done is added in 1,000 IUs of vitamin D3, which is the highest Health Canada would allow us. It's a perfect marriage. When you have a natural substance like chaga, which contains vitamin D, to add in 1,000 units of vitamin D. Every Canadian needs vitamin D. Everyone, if you drew a line from Atlanta across to Los Angeles and north, essentially requires vitamin D. Vitamin D is a hormone, pro hormone, that has so many functions in the body. I could spend 2 hours alone just talking about vitamin D. But please, do some research on medicinal mushrooms. Do some research on anything along this line. You're going to find it's going to open your eyes up and go, why haven't we heard about this sooner? Right? But it's coming. It's coming. The biggest health trend right now in natural health is medicinal mushrooms. We are a Canadian company. Everything we do is made in Canada. We have a pharma lab in Vancouver. Everything we do for mushrooms is sourced within North America organically. We're a Saskatchewan company. Our lab is in Vancouver region. We support Canada. We encourage everyone to make sure when you look at products, let's try and deal as much as we can with our own economy. It needs all the help right now that it can get. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for your time. I truly appreciate it.